Article 2, the Legislature. Section 1, the Chambers. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Assembly of the Yoruba Nation, which shall consist of a first chamber of lawmakers and a second chamber of lawmakers. Section 2, the First Chamber. Section 2, Clause 1, Qualifications for membership in the First Chamber. No person shall be a member of the First Chamber unless, having attained the age of 25 years, be a citizen of Yoruba Nation, and both parents be of Yoruba ancestral lineage, and, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state in which such person shall be chosen. Section 2, Clause 2, Terms in Office. The First Chamber shall be composed of lawmakers whose term shall be 4 years, shall serve no more than 3 terms, and be chosen every 4th year by the people of the several states. Section 2, Clause 3, Number of lawmakers per state. The members of the First Chamber shall, based on credible available data, not exceed 1 for every 500,000 persons per state, but each state shall have at least 1 member in the First Chamber, and continuous after an enumeration shall be made within 5 years after the first meeting of the Assembly of the Yoruba Nation, and therefrom within every subsequent term of 10 years, in such manner as they shall by law direct. Section 2, Clause 4, Vacancy. In the case of vacancy in the First Chamber from any state during a term, the governor of that state shall, according to that state's electoral law, appoint a citizen of that state to complete that term, or facilitate an election to fill such vacancy. Section 2, Clause 5, Speaker and other officers of the First Chamber. The First Chamber shall elect their Speaker and other officers. Section 2, Clause 6, Rotational election. Immediately after they shall be assembled in consequence of the first election, they shall be divided as equally as may be into 2 parts. The seats of the First Chamber of the first part shall be vacated at the expiration of the 2nd year, and of the second part at the expiration of the 4th year, so that 1/2 may be chosen every 2nd year, and if vacancies happen by resignation, or otherwise, the governor of such state may make temporary appointments or facilitate elections, according to that state's law, until the next election at the end of the term, which shall then fill such vacancies. Section 2, Clause 7, Impeachment. The First Chamber shall have the power to initiate impeachment by drafting the articles of impeachment, and then deliberate on impeaching the President of Yoruba Nation, and impeach the President upon review of the articles, facts, and arguments presented for or against impeaching the President. The First Chamber shall also initiate the impeachment upon receiving an order for such from the Council of Kings. Section 3, the Second Chamber. Section 3, Clause 1, Qualifications for membership in the Second Chamber. No person shall be a lawmaker of the Second Chamber who shall not have attained to the age of 35, and be a citizen of Yoruba Nation, and an inhabitant of that state in which such person shall be chosen. Section 3, Clause 2, Terms in Office. The Second Chamber shall be composed of lawmakers who shall serve no more than 2 terms, chosen by the people thereof, for 6 years, and be chosen every 6th year, and each lawmaker of the Second Chamber shall have 1 vote. Section 3, Clause 3, Number of lawmakers per state. There shall be 2 lawmakers on the Second Chamber from each state within Yoruba Nation. Section 3, Clause 4, Vacancy. In the case of vacancy in the Second Chamber from any state during a term, the governor of that state shall, according to that state's electoral law, appoint a citizen of that state to complete that term, or facilitate an election to fill such vacancy. Section 3, Clause 5, President of the Second Chamber and other officers. The Vice President of Yoruba Nation shall be President of the Second Chamber, but shall have no vote, unless they be equally divided. The Second Chamber shall choose their other officers, and also a member to assume the role of the Vice President, in the absence of the Vice President, or when the Vice President shall exercise the office of President of Yoruba Nation. Section 3, Clause 6, Rotational Election. Immediately after they shall be assembled in consequence of the first election, they shall be divided as equally as may be into 3 parts. The seats of the second chamber of the first part shall be vacated at the expiration of the second year, of the second part at the expiration of the 4th year, and of the third parts at the expiration of the 6th year, so that 1/3 may be chosen every second year, and if vacancies happen by resignation, or otherwise, the governor of such state may make temporary appointments until the next election at the end of the term, which shall then fill such vacancies. Section 3, Clause 7, Trial to remove President from office upon impeachment. Upon impeachment of the President by the first chamber, removal from office shall be only upon a trial in the second chamber. When sitting for that purpose, they shall be on oath or affirmation. When the President of Yoruba Nation is tried, the Chief Justice shall preside, and no person shall be convicted without the concurrence of both thirds of members present. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor or trust under Yoruba Nation, but the party convicted shall nevertheless be liable and subject to prosecution by indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment, according to law. Section 4, Town Hall Meetings. The lawmakers of the first chamber shall have at least one town hall meeting every 2 months in the respective local governments during each term in office. The lawmakers of the second chamber shall conduct at least one town hall meeting in their respective local governments during each term in office. Section 5, Clause 1, Time, Place, and Manner of Elections. The times, places and manner of holding elections for the Assembly shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof, but the Assembly may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the place of election. Section 5, Clause 2, Assembly to determine beginning and end of office term. The first Assembly of Yoruba Nation shall determine the date and time when the term of the President and Vice President officially begin and end, as well as the date and time when terms of the lawmakers of subsequent the Assembly begin officially, and the terms of the successors shall then begin, in accordance with Article 2, Section 2, Clause 6, and Section 3, Clause 6. Section 6, Clause 1, Quorum Requirements, Authority to compel attendance. Quorum is required to do business, and quorum shall be a majority of each state's delegates, and 2/3 of the entire chamber, but the smaller number may adjourn from day to day, and may be authorized to compel the attendance of absent members, in such manner, and under such penalties, as each chamber shall provide. Section 6, Clause 2, Chamber to set rules for proceedings, punishment, expulsion. Each chamber shall determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and may expel a member with the concurrence of 2/3. Section 6, Clause 3, Chamber shall keep and publish Journal of Proceedings. Each chamber shall keep a journal of its proceedings, and publish the same quarterly, excepting such parts as require secrecy in the interest of national security, and the vote of the members of either chamber on any question shall be entered into the journal. Section 6, Clause 4, Consent required for adjournment beyond 3 days. Neither chamber, during the session of the Assembly, shall, without the consent of the other, adjourn for more than 3 days, nor to any other place than that in which the 2 chambers shall be sitting. Section 7, Clause 1, Compensation of Assembly. Members of the Assembly shall receive a compensation for their services, to be ascertained by law, and paid out of the treasury of Yoruba Nation. They shall in all cases, except treason, felony and breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective chambers, and in going to and returning from the same, and they shall not be questioned in any other place, for any speech or debate in either chamber. Section 7, Clause 2, no holding simultaneous office, office created during term. No member of the Assembly shall, during the term for which such member is elected, be appointed to any civil office under the authority of Yoruba nation, which was created, or the salary or compensation increased during the elected term, and no person holding any office under Yoruba nation shall be a member of either chamber during his continuance in office. Section 7, Clause 3, no double compensation or pension. Any person who has held more than one office, whether elected or appointed, is entitled to only the salary of the current position. Such a person, when no longer in office, is entitled to only one pension of such person's choosing. Section 7, Clause 4, compensation limited to salary and health care. The compensation for elected or appointed office shall be limited to salary and health care. Section 8, Clause 1, bills for revenue shall originate from first chamber. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the first chamber of lawmakers, but the second chamber may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Section 8, Clause 2, President's veto of bills. Every bill which shall have passed the first and second chambers of lawmakers, shall, before it become a law, be presented to the President of Yoruba nation. If such shall approve, he shall sign it, but if not, he shall return it, with his objections, to that chamber in which it shall have originated, who shall enter the objections at large on their journal, and proceed to reconsider it. If after such reconsideration 2/3 of that chamber shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent, together with the objections, to the other chamber, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered, and if approved by 2/3 of that chamber, it shall become a law. But in all such cases the votes of both chambers shall be determined by the collective vote of the individual lawmakers, and the names of the persons voting for and against, bini talbi biko, the bill shall be entered on the journal of each chamber, respectively. If any bill shall not to be returned by the President within 10 days, excluding public holidays, after it shall have been presented to him, the same shall be a law, in like manner as if he had signed it, unless the Assembly by their adjournment prevent its return, in which case it shall not to be a law. Section 8, Clause 3, President's veto of order, resolution, or votes. Every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of the second chamber and first chamber may be necessary, except on a question of adjournment, shall be presented to the President of Yoruba nation, and before the same shall take effect, shall be approved by him, or, being disapproved by him, shall be repassed by 2/3 of the second and first chambers, according to the rules and limitations prescribed in the case of a bill. Section 9, Clause 1, Assembly's power to collect income tax. The Assembly shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived, and to also collect duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of Yoruba nation, but all duties, imposts and excises shall be uniform throughout the Yoruba nation, and the collection of said revenue shall never be privatized. Section 9, Clause 2, Authority to borrow. To borrow money on the credit of Yoruba nation. Section 9, Clause 3, Regulation of commerce. To regulate commerce with foreign nations, and among the several states. Section 9, Clause 4, Money standards. To coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign legal tender, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Section 9, Clause 5, Punishment of counterfeiting. To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and legal tender of Yoruba nation. Section 9, Clause 6, Post offices and post roads. To establish post offices and post roads. Section 9, Clause 7, Patents and copyrights. to establish patent law to secure for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings, discoveries, and inventions. Section 9, Clause 8, Cultural Artifacts. To promulgate laws to protect and repatriate cultural artifacts. Section 9, Clause 9, Courts inferior to the Supreme Court. To constitute courts inferior to the Supreme Court. Section 9, Clause 10, Offenses. To define and punish crimes, corruption, piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, and offenses against the international law, among others. Section 9, Clause 11, Declare war. To declare war, order reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Section 9, Clause 12, Raise and support armies. To raise and support armies. Section 9, Clause 13, Provide a navy. To provide and maintain a navy. Section 9, Clause 14, Provide an air force. To provide and maintain an air force. Section 9, Clause 15, Government and regulation of military forces. To make rules for the government and regulation of the land, naval, and air forces, in which only citizens with two natural parents of Yoruba ancestry shall serve. Section 9, Clause 15, Location of capital. To decide exclusively in the second chamber the location of the capital, by session of a particular state or states, which shall become the seat of the government of Yoruba nation. Section 9, Clause 16, Exclusive authority over certain property. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever, over such capital and to exercise like authority over all places, purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. And Section 9, Clause 17, All necessary and proper laws. To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of Yoruba nation, or in any department or officer thereof. Section 10, Clause 1, Habeas corpus. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended, unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Section 10, Clause 2, Due process required. No person or persons may be declared guilty of a crime or crimes without due process. Section 10, Clause 3, No retroactive laws. There shall be no retroactive laws. Section 10, Clause 4, No interstate tax. No interstate tax or duty shall be laid on items exported from any state. Section 10, Clause 5, No preference of state ports. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to, or from, one state, be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. Section 10, Clause 6, Withdrawals from Treasury. No money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence of appropriations made by law. And a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. Section 10, Clause 7, No titles of nobility granted. No title of nobility shall be granted by Yoruba nation. Section 10, Clause 8, No foreign titles from foreign state or monarch. No person holding any office of profit or trust in Yoruba nation or the individual states, shall accept any present, emolument, office, or title, of any kind whatever, from any foreign monarch or state. Section 11, Clause 1, Prohibitions on states. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, issue reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit beyond the state's borders, make any legal tender payment of debts, pass any retroactive laws, or law impairing the obligation of lawful contracts, or grant any title of monarchy or nobility. Section 11, Clause 2, no interstate tax, sharing revenue. No state shall exert any tax or duties on imports or exports, except what may be absolutely necessary for executing its inspection laws, but each state with the port shall be entitled to a 60% share of the revenue at its port, with the 40% balance remitted to Yoruba nation. Section 11, Clause 3, limits on states. No state shall, without the consent of the Assembly, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or warships, or enter into any agreement or compact with another state, or with a foreign power. Section 11, Clause 4, no war from states. No state shall engage in war,